Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. It's 2 o'clock. It looks like we have about 265 participants and more are filing in now. So thank you so much. Kevin, I see you just sent me a poem. I'm going to pass on that for now. We'll have to suffice with your dancing. But welcome everybody. We're excited to present to you another of our WebEx, our updates in the time of COVID. And this is a very exciting one. So we welcome everybody here today. We are very excited to share with you information about the University of the Future booklet, which was truly a university-wide collaborative effort. And so today you're going to be hearing from some folks that you see here on the panel, and then we'll go through a question and answer session. So what we'll do is, again, I'm gonna tell you who's here on the panel today. Then you'll hear from the cluster leaders, first the president, then the cluster leaders, and then we're going to go ahead and answer the Q&A. You did have the ability to submit questions in advance, and our speakers have incorporated those questions, the responses, into their comments. So if there are questions after that, of course, please do go ahead and submit them into the chat session. You may want to hold your questions toward the end, because what might not be answered right away could get answered throughout the presentation. Although you will not be able to see the questions, all of the panelists can. And so we will be getting to all the questions, I assure you. If for some reason we don't, feel free to email us. We are happy to respond to you individually. So with that, let me go ahead and talk about who's on the panel. First, we have President Houshmand. We have Provost Rowan. We have our CFO, Joe Scully, General Counsel, Melissa Wheatcroft. We have the co-chairs of the Academics of the Future Committee, Damond Miller and Mariano Savelski. We have the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee co-chairs, Cheryl Bodnar and Elise Crawford. We have the Pricing Committee co-chairs, Michael Blake and Kevin Kett. The DEI Scholarship Committee co-chairs, Penny McPherson Myers and RJ Talarita. And the Flexible Work co-chairs, Christine Larson-Britt and Stephanie Cazone. And we also have with us Horacio Sosa and Steve Weinstein, who have been coordinating between the clusters and the executive cabinet throughout this process, and we thank them for their presence as well. So thank you all for being here. So now what we're going to do is just turn it over to President Houshmand, who's going to give us a welcome and an view of the process that started with the Leadership Summit. And then we're going to go through the updates from the various cluster leaders, starting with, we're going to start with Tony Lohman, and then we'll go to Joe Scully and then Melissa Wheatcroft. So, Mr. President.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for so many of you being able to connect to this very important conversation. I'm so delighted, quite honestly, that to be here at this moment and having this conversation at a time where I look around higher education sector and I see so many institutions are facing great deal of challenges, and many are really trying to figure out how to move forward and forward in a way of survival. Whereas in our case, I really think that we are trying to chart the future of the institution for greatness. I am so pleased with this document. First of all, I will call it a living document, an incomplete document. It's not done, but what it is. Precisely because it's organic, it's homegrown, and it's done by you. I will tell you, the only thing that I did, I hosted the cabinet where we talked about this thing, and then they put the committee, you put the committee members together, you did the work, you did the summaries, and everything, it belongs to the university, good or bad. Let me just tell you though, I just finished another conversation with another fellow president in Pennsylvania who had the document in front of him, and his first question was, how did you do it? And then went through 1 hour of questioning, how did we get to where we did? And you know what I said? And when he told me, how did you do it? My first response to him was, it wasn't really me, it was us. I was surrounded by well-intended people who cared for their home, for their second home. That's really the bottom line. Now, obviously, the core of what we do as an academic institution is academic. And of these 5 or 6 committees, 2 of them are continuing and they have to continue. And in fact, I only believe that we have only scratched the surface. One of them is, of course, the academic. The other one is facility and operation. Both of them very much intertwined. In fact, all the committees are. But these two, in order for us to continue doing the work and getting this institution to keep on moving forward and being better and better positioned to serve you and serve the population for generations to come, is for you to get involved. This is your university. I have no interest in prescribing a solution for anybody. I'm not sure if I actually have the solution. But even if I did, I would be the last person who want to do that. The more you get involved, the more you own this. And the more you own it, the more you really pay attention to it, and it guarantees its success. I have every intention of implementing the recommendations that are in this book and the future recommendations. We are going to put the resources behind this thing, no matter what it takes. We're going to prove to you, even to those who probably still think that maybe we won't be able to do it, we're going to show to you that we do everything we can to find the resources, and even more than the resources that are required, to make this university an amazing institution for generations to come. I need your help. I'm grateful for what you have done so far. For those of you who probably have been contemplating to join in, but have been thinking about it, not sure, I urge you to get involved. This is your place. This is your home. People like me come and go. You guys stay here for a generation. Thank you for being in here, and I look forward for the future greatness of our institution. Thanks.
Thanks so much, President Houshmand. We appreciate your leadership throughout this process and the fact that you have truly made it a document that came from the members of the community themselves. And so we appreciate your leadership on that.
Thank you.
And now we're going to hear from Provost Rowan, who will talk about the Academics of the Future Committee.
Thank you. So I'm certainly excited to be here today. I'm thinking back of the number of these we've run through the last year, and each time we vary between pessimism or unknown, but I'm excited today to talk about our future. I'm very optimistic. As President Houshmand says, we've got a lot of good work and a lot of great runway ahead of us. And I was excited to lead the academic efforts. I enjoyed the fact that I also took a very hands-off approach. So this effort was steered by two great members of our campus community, Damon Miller and Mariana Sabelsky, who did an outstanding job putting together their main committee, but then also putting together the subcommittees. And I want to thank everyone from the subcommittees. So Beth Christensen and Gatan Jean-Marie, who led the program Vitalization. Lorraine Richeza and Vaughn Calhoun led the area on nano-credentials. Harold Connolly and Rick Dahmers for working on the Faculty of the Future. And Roberta Harvey and Rochelle Hendricks, who continued work on the workforce-related certificates, which was an extension of work that was already being done here at the institution. As the president said, this is a living document, and we have a lot of work to do with it. And to give a couple of highlights, the first thing we're doing, I think at the head of the line of activities, is we're working now with a third party, EAB, and we're going to evaluate the operations and the efficiencies of all the programs. And I don't want to put this in a sense of panic, as we're going to cut things or we're getting rid of this or we're losing people here. This is to make sure that we're aligning all of our resources in such a way that we're meeting the needs of our students and we're meeting the needs of our faculty in terms of development and helping our students and helping move forward. To give you a little context of how we started this, each program and department were asked to provide as a starting point what they deemed was valuable and what they deemed we give our students. And from there now, we're working on the metrics and we're going to do the evaluations based on things that you provided. Not what I provided, not what the president provided, but what you have provided based on how we operate our programs. As we think about where we go, I don't want this document to be misinterpreted. We're still going to focus on continued excellence on our approach to experiential education. That's something we're really good at, and that's something we're going to keep doing. It doesn't mean, however, we're going to go back to the old ways or the old status quo of the sage on the stage. What I've been excited for, and we heard today, I hear every day from faculty that are asking about new innovative approaches to teaching when we're out of this pandemic. So I'm excited to hear that we're going to do things differently, that we're going to come out of this with innovative ways of teaching, using our resources, using technology, and reaching our students in a way we haven't done before. So I'm excited to hear that. We've also got to expand our offerings. We've got to look at what we're doing with global. We've got to expand. We've got to do more. It's not enough to keep doing what we're doing. We have to get ahead of the other institutions. The other institutions are going to be doing this. If we sit on what we're doing, we won't thrive. We might survive, but we're not going to thrive and keep the path we're going. That means we have to be willing to collaborate and think outside of the box. That means we have to expand our partnership across the main institution and Rowan Global about doing things differently. We can't think about doing things the way we did. We've got to get rid of this mindset of the process of doing things over actually the progress in doing our things. So we're working across all of our academic units through the Center for Academic Innovation, Rowan Global, and the Senate to develop ways of getting these new programs, new credentials, new certificates out faster. That means development and integration of new nano credentials. That means more workforce certificates that reach students and reach different learners in different populations. And as we do that, that's going to give us the base we need to thrive going forward. Key to this, all of these efforts, is going to be our faculty. It's how do we prepare our faculty as the faculty of the future, just like we're talking the university of the future. So what does that mean we have to do? We have to emphasize having a diverse faculty. That means all of the hires we do, we need to keep that in our minds, and we have to practice what we preach and have diversity in this faculty as we grow. And as we grow, we want to continue our path with the research growth. And we have to determine, where do we end up? Are we going to be an outstanding top of class R2? Or are we going to continue our natural progression right now on the pathway to R1? This is going to be driven by the quality and excellence of what we do. It's not going to be driven by chasing a designation. So we're going to focus on quality in these areas. And as we do this, and as we grow our faculty, we're going to look at plans for cluster hires in areas that will establish us leaders educationally, as well as researching areas of global importance. A number have come to our mind, but I believe we're probably going to be moving in the area of sustainability as well as life sciences as the first areas of cluster hiring. That said, we've got to also look out for all of our faculty. We've got to provide professional development pathways for all of our faculty. We've got to align the skill sets of our faculty to get productivity, but also be putting people in position where they're doing what they're passionate about and what they're good at and how they're going to contribute to the university. I'm excited about that. And what does that mean with our faculty? It means right now I'm working with the Senate. This office, the Provost office, is working with both the Senate and AFT. We're going to work on all of our MOAs, all of our agreements, and rethink our pathways to make sure that all of our faculty are contributing to our mission. All of the items I laid out here, where we're going to go. We will reward you for doing these things. We will help you develop your pathway for promotion and having a great career here, doing all the things we're doing. So I'm excited about the future. I might have taken too much time, but I realized if I didn't, Melissa Wheatcroft was going to take it. So I decided to fire the first shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I do see that there's some questions coming in, and they may be answered in the comments of Melissa and or Joe Scully. So just stay tuned, listen to what these folks have to say, and then again, we'll get to the Q&A at the end, and some of it may be answered during that time. So now, thank you again, Provost Lohman. We're going to hear from Joe Scully, who will give an update on the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee and also the Pricing Committee. Joe?
Thank you. Good afternoon. As Joanne mentioned, I represent the Facilities and Infrastructure Cluster, which also includes Mira Lalican and Joe Campbell and Joanne Connor. We all, as Joanne mentioned, we had two great committees that were represented in the University of the Future project. First was the Pricing Committee, which was co-chaired by Michael Blake and Kevin Kett. And the second committee, the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, which was co-chaired by Cheryl Bodner and Elise Crawford. Both of these committees work with a diverse group of individuals across the university as well as representatives representing both the medical schools. At this point in time, I just want to point out one thing, that these recommendations at this point are only recommendations. The committees still have work to do. They need to further investigate their ideas and work with the other committees to make sure the recommendations are consistent with the other committees' plans and that the final recommendations can be implemented successfully. As far as the pricing committee, they were charged with identifying a price structure that appealed to cost-conscious, value-seeking students while identifying a price point that leads to revenue growth and generates positive margins. The pricing structure should be easy, simple, transparent, easy to implement and modify, and increase the likelihood of degree completion and retention of diverse students. The pricing committee focused on 3 areas: the medical school, Rowan Global, and undergraduate. As far as the Rowan Global Committee, they were asked to examine the pricing models used and to suggest changes that would ultimately make Rowan Global pricing more competitive and boost enrollment. Their recommendations included investigating the use of subscription modeling, offered mixed modality undergraduate programs, which would provide more flexibility to students for choosing both in-person or remote instruction, and also to perform a competitive analysis on all the offerings of Rowan Global. As far as the medical school, their main theme kept on returning to the balance of affordability and student debt levels. Their recommendations include making the 2 medical schools' tuitions comparable by fiscal 28, increase the number of out-of-state students, and increase scholarships to medical school students. As far as the undergraduate pricing committee, a common concern among the students is that they don't understand the true cost due to the large number of fees that we have. The committee recommends including making the total cost easier to understand, move towards a simplified tuition fee structure, bundling fees where appropriate with tuition. They also recommend completing an analysis of housing and meal plan options, investigate discounts for the winter and summer semester to promote enhanced student participation, as well as investigate other tuition models. The goal of this committee is to implement some or all of these changes for fiscal 23. As far as the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, they were charged with 3 key tasks. One was to determine the current state of infrastructure and the facilities. They also performed a stakeholder analysis of the needs required for university expansion. And then third, they were to compare 1 and 2 and create initial recommendations. Some of their recommendations include embarking on a cloud-first strategy. Maintaining our own servers has become increasingly expensive. Moving data management towards a cloud-first strategy will begin to address the rising costs. They also suggested creating a Rowan portal. This will improve access to our systems and enhance student experiences. Another recommendation was update the Campbell Library. This initiative seeks to transform Campbell Library into a modern, multi-purpose, collaborative space. They also suggested create a centralized customer relations platform. Implementation of a CRM platform will help us streamline the recruitment, admissions, and onboarding process. Other suggestions including improvements to our central utility plant. They want us to monitor and analyze energy production and uses across all campuses, develop a more carbon neutral energy plan, and explore third-party options that incorporate energy saving strategies and improve the value. They also suggest continue with West Campus development through partnerships, advance the plans for the West Campus, which will leverage business development and enhance opportunities for student internships, academic programs, employment, and economic development. They also see fit that we need to address the residence hall's deferred maintenance. They suggest that we review residence halls and move forward with plans to provide new or updated facilities. And last but not least, parking. They want us to consider needs for strategically increasing capacity, continue with plans to increase parking in the North Campus Drive project, and move forward with implementing new parking at Rowan SON. In response to a question I received earlier today, I just wanted to state in closing, throughout the COVID period, infrastructure projects that benefit all buildings were complete and will continue. The university also has invested in and completed technology enhancements in academic areas throughout the university. Further infrastructure and technology needs will be driven by the outcomes of the other committees. The needs for newer facilities didn't disappear. They need to be evaluated and positioned with context of outcomes from the other committees. These committees will drive the critical factors that impact space needs across campuses and help determine which buildings we will renovate, repurpose, or where new facilities will be built. At this time, I'd like to thank all the members of the committee and all the members of the subcommittees for their participation and look forward to working with them on the recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Real quick before we get to Melissa, Tony, do you want to address that question?
Yes, I saw a question on here that while I was talking that popped up. What about AAUP? And yes, to all of our faculty and staff at SOM, I'm sorry, I did not mean to forget you, but absolutely we will be working to take care of you as well. You're a critical part of our growth and future. So sorry for overlooking you.
Thank you. Okay, and now thank you to Joe for your overview. We're going to hear from Melissa Wheatcroft to get an update on the DEI Scholarship Committee and the Flexible Work Committees. Melissa?
Thank you. I'm a member of the Compliance Committee, and I'm thrilled to be here on behalf of the Compliance Cluster, which also consists of Monica Williams-Shealy, Teresa Dry, Joanne Connor, Ray Brawning, and Joseph Scully. We had the pleasure of overseeing two of the Leadership Summit subcommittees in this process. The Flexible Workforce Committee, which was headed by Christine Larson-Britt and Stephanie Cazone, and the DEI Scholarship Committee, which was led by RJ Talarita and Penny McPherson Myers. They provided excellent leadership to their subcommittees, and we're very excited to be moving forward some of the recommendations that they've made into real action, which we think is going to help change the university. As we all know, we're a predominantly paper-based public entity. Many people have lamented for many years how everything took so much time because we were paper-based processes for everything from HR processes to procurement. We also were heavily manually driven, and in some cases we were resistant to moving forward in many ways on the side of moving forward in technology. That being said, we were trying to move forward in an agile way. And so some of these mindsets really held us back, specifically in the area of flexible work arrangements, where I think people were skeptical of how successful they could truly be. That being said, I think the university surprised itself in its success at moving forward in flexible work arrangements over a time when we needed to. In an emergency situation, we successfully moved hundreds of classes online, hundreds of hours of advising. We moved fundraising into a hybrid environment, and in an atmosphere where no one expected to be able to raise money because frankly, the economics were difficult and we weren't sure how that kind of interface would work. We managed to raise $10 million, a great start for what we knew was going to be a challenging year. What we saw nationally is that companies estimated that they moved forward 3 to 4 years digitally because of the pandemic. In a world where about 25% of workers generally worked remotely, we now see 88% who worked remotely during the pandemic. And so the president asked us the very compelling question, how do we turn something that we seem to do well in an emergent situation into something that might be sustainable? And he charged us in looking at our systems and the university processes to try to figure out a way to move forward that would be equitable, that would really make sure that there was accountability, and that as with everything we do, our students and our patients' needs and interests would be put first. And the Flexible Workforce Committee responded to that call. Led by a great team of leaders, they developed an interim policy that was focused on these objectives. And they basically decided that we needed to focus on a few key areas. And what we've decided as a leadership team is that we're going to work with the committee to identify the divisions and departments in which flexible working arrangements were already successful and could continue to be successful. We're going to solicit stakeholder feedback from our students and from our patients to figure out what their needs are. Do they feel like they're adequately supported in hybrid modalities in the area of advising? Do they want more hybrid courses? What does fundraising look like as we head into the next few years? We're going to determine whether there's additional support or technology needs for employee success, as well as for successful engagement with our stakeholders. And then we'll use this information to support the implementation of a pilot program, hopefully in the coming fiscal year, the programs we think will be most successful. So we're excited to continue to work with this committee in implementing these strategies. And we note that they're already deep in work in the stakeholder feedback and soliciting what our students want and what our patients want. So we think this is the beginning of some exciting next steps in that area. We're equally excited on diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarship. As everyone on this call knows, in January of 2019, our president took the unprecedented step of establishing a division devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. He solidified Rowan's commitment to addressing the persistent issues that Rowan, as well as the nation, faces in these areas. But we all recognize that DEI is not the work of one division. It's the work of the entire university. So toward that end, Monica Williams-Shealy set about establishing a DEI council that consists of representation of the entire university and made sure that each division had a strategic action plan focused on addressing DEI issues within particular units. They established the DEI certificate program to help improve our professional development as a university and beyond the university. Unfortunately, what we know is while the pandemic has offered great opportunities for progress in a lot of areas, both in the university as well as the nation, it's also shown a light on incredible disparities in our populations. We know that this health issue has unfairly impacted individuals of color and disadvantaged minorities. We've seen that individuals of color have suffered at greater rates. They've been hospitalized more often, they've had more deaths. And on top of that, we've seen greater economic impacts. We've seen losses of jobs, and we've seen growing tensions. And so what we've seen and what environment this rose up in is in the summer when the president convened the leadership subcommittee, we were in the midst of thousands of protests across the nation, protesting murders in violent contexts. We were really concerned about how we could move forward fairly, both economically and on a health side. And we wanted to make sure, I'm sorry, can you hear me? My screen just went blank. I'm going to continue talking, and hopefully if people can hear me, they will tell me that.
We can hear you.
We hear you fine.
Thank you so much. I love WebEx. So what we asked and what the president asked us to do is to have the committee chaired by RJ Talarita and Penny McPherson Myers. Consisted of representatives from across the university who are focused on these important issues. And they asked themselves, how can we put in place best practices which are focused on recruitment and retention of individuals of color, and making sure that individuals reach successful outcomes, make sure that graduation rates are appropriate, make sure that we have appropriate funding structures in place. This work, as Joe Scully has already mentioned, is deeply intertwined with the work of the pricing committee, and we recognize that and need to do more work collaboratively. The committee concluded that Rowan should endeavor to increase need-based funding for its students. It should improve services and supports to diverse students, faculty, and members of its community. And it should establish more opportunities for experiential learning for diverse students. Toward that end, our leadership team is going to focus on the following areas. We're going to understand how our aspirant universities provide services and supports to diverse students that lead to positive outcomes. We're going to figure out how we can increase financial need-based aid for all students, including seeking other sources of aid, such as partnerships with healthcare providers, such as other funding sources. We're going to improve availability and access to experiential learning by increasing potential business partners, building on existing successful models with private and public partners, and improving our own tracking mechanisms for experiential learning. We've already heard the question, what about why these priorities and why not all the priorities that were set forth by the committees? And we have to acknowledge that all the committees set forth amazing action plans, and every committee set forth things that we would love to do as quickly as possible. Our leadership team really tried to focus on the ones that we thought that we could move forward most expeditiously and in a way that collaborates with the needs of the other committee and the work that's already going on. This doesn't mean that the work wasn't valued or we're not going to do those things. It means that these are the priorities. So we're going to work together, and we look forward to working directly with the committees in advancing these important next steps. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. So now we're going to go ahead and get to the Q&A. Very quickly, I did want to, so who we have here on the panel today, again, are the cluster leaders as well as the committee co-chairs. So I just wanted to remind the audience that what we're reviewing today is the University of the Future booklet, which is specifically discussing the recommendations that came from the committees. It is not inclusive of every strategic direction or effort that the university is undergoing. This document is very true to the committee process and was designed specifically that way. And so what you see here are specifically those recommendations. So there may be additional recommendations that come from the university community, and I see some of them here. Amanda, I'm so glad that you're happy with all the focus on technology. That's great. And yes, we will be focusing on technology. But there's a couple of questions here that to me seem to speak to sustainability. And so Tony talked a little bit about that. But I just wanted to take a quick moment to let the audience know that Tony and Kevin Kett and I actually just participated in a meeting with Joe Campbell and others, including students, about the fact that we do have a sustainability master planning process underway that Joe Campbell is leading. It was momentarily paused during COVID, but it will be up and running again. Ken Lacovara was also on that call, and we will be picking up that effort. And so some of the recommendations here for charging stations for electric cars and things would be wonderful for that committee to take up. And so we will make sure that we share that with Joe Campbell so that that committee takes a look at those recommendations. So with that, let me get to some of the other questions. There was one here for you, Tony. What are the thoughts about allowing departments to continue running some sections of courses as fully remote, not hybrid or online? The can't change format, that RGLP, you can see that question, if you can respond to that. You see that at the end from David? Not hybrid or online, the can't change format, that RGLP.
Oh, yeah.
Not really fit well.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. And over the last 3 weeks, Roberta Harvey and Rory McElwee held a number of forums for faculty. I think we had every seat for the 3 groups was filled. And we talked about what we're going to look like post-pandemic, or at least certainly in the fall and then beyond. And I absolutely think there are going to be opportunities where we're going to need to provide this distance learning. I think even in the fall, even if things continue to improve, I knocked on my wood desk, we're still going to have people that are going to be a little uncomfortable coming to classes. That said, in addition to that, I think you're going to find people that this fits what they're looking for. We have a lot of students, as evidenced by our dorm capacity this year, that want that true experience, but there's others that the distance learning works. And if we have more of these synchronous remote classes, I think that'll help us grab a bigger base that will support what we want to do. So we are open to working with faculty who have innovative ideas on teaching synchronously remote, with flipped classrooms, hybrids, face-to-face and technology enhanced. We're open. I don't view my job as a provost to tell you how to teach. My job is to help you get the platforms in place you need to train our students. So yes, Dave, we're open to really innovative ideas.
Thank you. Joe Scully, were there any construction or facility suggestions that impact academic buildings, such as a new science building to accommodate the growth in life sciences research and academic programs?
Not necessarily through the subcommittees, Joanne. That was certainly something that facilities in general has on their slate of ideas out there, but it wasn't necessarily a recommendation of the subcommittee at this point in time.
And thank you, Joe. And can you speak to deferred maintenance? That came up as a question as well.
Sure. We certainly identified deferred maintenance in the residence hall as a priority to look forward, but deferred maintenance has been an issue at the university for quite a while now, and we continue to tackle that on an annual basis as best we can through our operating budget. But at some point in time, with the other committee suggestions about different flex hours and things of that, it may create opportunities where we either don't need to do certain upgrades or areas that are more heightened that we need to do more deferred maintenance in. So we're keeping a good track on that through the facilities department.
Thank you. And one more for you, Joe. If you can just speak a little bit about the upgrades in technology, maybe you can expand, or the committee co-chairs could as well.
Well, I know from some of the upgrades and investments that we're making, we've implemented some things in the finance area. Clean card solution is something that's going to be rolled out soon. We also made advancements in our travel module. That's a nice advancement for the university. We're going to be rolling out a new procurement system in the next 18 to 24 months, which is also helpful. The committee specifically addressed creating a platform for a CRM platform, which will enhance the admissions and onboarding process. So that's a nice investment. A cloud strategy, which is pretty expensive, estimated up to about $15 to $18 million. That's certainly something we're looking to as well. So there are just some of the infrastructure. Over the past several months, we've updated, I believe, 165 classrooms, I believe the number was, with online capabilities now. So we were able to do that over this last year.
Wonderful, thank you. So that's actually all the questions that we have. I'm not sure if there is anyone else who wants to add any comments or additional thoughts on their committee work, or respond to anything that you might be hearing as you get questions from university community members.
You may want to give the subcommittee members any opportunity to make any comment about their work or what the future work. I think they were the key people who really did most of the work. So I'd like for them to have an opportunity if they have any thoughts to express it, please.
Wonderful. Yes, please. Why don't we start? Let's say we'll start with Damon and Mariana.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for having us. Yes, this Academics of the Future subcommittee has been very interesting work, and we have engaged a multitude of faculty and staff to contribute to the 4 areas that Dr. Lohman, Provost Lohman mentioned that we are investigating. And we have over 50 working members, volunteers that are working in those 4 areas. And this is a continuing process. The program review is an ongoing. We project to have recommendations in first phase by the end of this academic year. However, we envision that we will be also providing tools for the future so departments and colleges can make decisions through dashboards as to how to allocate their resources and how to evaluate alternatives and new programs, and that it can come their way. So not only recommendations for immediate, but we are planning for the academics of the future and the university of the future in terms of providing the university with the tools to do analysis of alternatives in academia, in the way we run our programs on live and on real time. So this is, we project that beyond this year and completion of the first set of recommendations, we look forward to continuing this work through an established task force that will continue with this process. And the Faculty for the Future, it's an initiative that started actually this spring, led by Drs. Harold Connolly and Rick Dahmers, and we are looking, like Tony said, at with the members of that committee at how to attract and retain the diverse population of faculty, have to have in place programs and procedures to reward the work the faculty do every day, whether it's through their scholarly teaching and service to the university, and how do we envision the faculty role post-pandemic, and any new faculty role that we could possibly also think in terms of collaborative partnerships with people that now may be working remotely and be affiliated with an institution. So that's a very exciting work as well that that committee is undergoing. And by the way, the co-chairs of all these committees make it clear to me that there's plenty of opportunity to receive feedback. We have faculty representation per college in the program review and revitalization, as well as faculty of future. However, there are going to be plenty of opportunities to continue giving feedback to the work that these two committees will continue to do through the spring, and in the case of program review through the summer as well. So those channels are completely open. And then I will let them all maybe talk a little bit about the workforce certificates and the other initiatives to Rowan Global that we have, which are very interesting and also moving forward very well.
So as Provost Lohman and President Houshmand asserted, we must always remain to grow our presence among our peer institutions. It is also clear for us that we have opportunities to meet the needs of our partners in the community, as well as our current students and students of the future. So with that being said, we are engaged in a series of meetings, discussions, and planning opportunities to embark upon ways to deliver curriculum in a new and innovative way with our partners inside of Rowan and outside of Rowan. Also, we are equally interested in our faculty and staff members in terms of how can we meet those needs through faculty of the future, but also workforce development for our own faculty and staff. So some of those key issues are important for us. We welcome all comments. The 4 subcommittees are eager to hear and eager to learn from members of the Rowan University community. We have representation from all of the areas of the university, as well as divisions of the university. We encourage everyone to give us the feedback and become contributing members of our community and our committee by virtue of giving feedback and being engaged with the process.
Thank you, Demond. I appreciate that. We do have a couple of questions coming in, so I want to make sure that I get to those. There is a question from Stephen Fleming. Has there been any discussion of the metrics that may be used to determine pricing if we are able to move toward a different pricing model? Will it be strictly based on major? Joe, you want to take that?
I can answer that. I'd like to put Michael on because he's in charge of the pricing committee. So.
Yeah, so I know Kevin's team was looking at the undergraduate, but as far as the differential pricing, I believe they were looking at the cost structure, and we definitely need to take a deeper dive into the cost structure of the different programs and get a better understanding of the price of the different programs and how we would set the pricing based on the cost of those programs.
Thank you. Kevin, you want to add anything?
Yes, and certainly, as Michael said, certainly one of the things we've got to get our hands around is what is the true cost of an education. And Stephen, we've looked at, it's not just major, it's lots of other perspectives. But the one thing we want to factor in there's a lot of literature out there about differential pricing and what it does to access and equity issues. And so I think that's something we always want to pay attention to as well. We don't want to dissuade somebody from entering a major or not attending Rowan University because of a differential model. So there are lots of pieces to that puzzle that still have some work to be done, some data to be collected, but it's something that we're looking at. We're also looking very closely at a per credit model recommendation.
Thank you, Kevin. Tony, for the academics of the future, there's a question about our success in remote learning. I wonder if we can think about developing programs that target students living outside of the U.S.
Yes, and I wish Jeff Hand were here. He would be talking about how we are doing that. And in fact, that was one of the things that floated to the top before we even began this committee work, is how do we get our brand out there? And I know if our international center with GoCon Alkanot is very engaged with international universities to have this done. And in fact, in the last month, we have had Multiple deans have been on calls where we've signed some articulation agreements with universities 12 hours apart from us to begin exactly that type of arrangement. So that is spot on. And again, I encourage the individuals in colleges, in departments and programs to come forward with these ideas you have. Again, we're all going to own these ideas and we're all going to own the future.
Thank you. In the document, there was mention of a fee for the employee tuition waiver. Will you provide more detail on that, please? I guess that's for you, Joe. Thank you.
That's not necessarily a new fee. Right now for dependent scholarships, all the scholarship entitles to an employee is for the tuition benefit. They still have to pay for the fees associated with it. And that came up because if we combine tuition and fees together, we may need a separate fee to charge the employee fee. So it's no change from what they're paying currently.
Thank you. But Tony, there's a good question here about micro credentials from Joel. How can online providers of micro credentials help us to excel? I'm not necessarily opposed to this. I just don't understand it. Can you provide some insight, please? You're on mute.
Okay. Am I off? No, I'm back. Okay.
Yeah, we hear you now.
So that's a perfectly fair point, and certainly it's worthy of a good answer here. Is look, all online nano credentials or things that we see are not going to be things we adopt or adapt, but certainly universities that we would love, that we would aspire to be like, that are in the top 25 or 30 in this country have worked with some different or even some similar providers to develop that. So I'm not saying we're going to adopt credentials straight as they are and just slop them up and throw them. The work is going to involve vetting these credentials, integrating them with existing work that we do, so they could be supplementing what we're doing, not necessarily replacing what we're doing. And as someone who spent a lot of time reviewing a few of these, I went through a couple in artificial intelligence and machine learning over the summer, and I can tell you these are some of the vendors we're talking with. These are top-notch vendors that have come from top-notch places and can help us get where we want to go quicker, not by replacing what we're doing, but by complementing what we do. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. There is a question here from Carol. Have you ever considered a new revenue stream providing outsourcing support for learning and development departments within corporate and not-for-profit entities? We have the necessary experts and tools within our colleges.
Yes. So see my last answer as part of that answer, right? That's where the work with some of these nano credentials with the expertise we have in the department can lead to that. And I do know that Global and the Center for Academic Innovation have talked with a couple of colleges of how do they start this type of program. And this is what we're talking about. This is what we need to be doing with these industry relevant credentials and certificates. We have a workforce that wants to be retrained, that needs professional development, and there are professionals that could use this. People need to retool coming out of the pandemic. If you look at our state and you look at things that are going to be big in New Jersey and coming out of this pandemic, it's going to be the manufacturing and supply chain. It's going to be wind energy, and it's going to be cannabis. And we have the ability to take what we do and help develop these credentials further, so that we're training students that are going to come through what we call the traditional routes, which may not be traditional in 5 years, but also the non-traditional routes, already in industry or looking for a career change or a tune-up, professional skills. So there are a lot of things that we can do, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel completely. We can work with some of these providers to use our skills, their skills, and develop a complete package.
Thank you. There's a question here. It asks, will a web page be created to provide updates about these initiatives along with a list of the committees and their members? We do have that, and we have the list of the committees, their members, as well as the booklet itself. It's all on the President's Office webpage. And so you can see everything there. And as far as updates, the next one will be University Assembled, which is on March 26th. And so we look forward to having more information for you there about what has happened since this meeting. Let's see, how about if we go and move on to the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee and get an update from either Cheryl or Elise, if one of you want to provide an update.
Thank you,
Good
Joanne.
afternoon. Cheryl and I were honored to be able to help predict and make recommendations for the facilities of the future. We were very lucky to have widespread input across the community, and as this initiative goes forward, we look forward to hearing from others. So if there are any ideas, we're certainly open to them as we move forward with the initiative.
Thanks, Elise. Cheryl, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think I just want to mention that we understand the purpose of facilities and technology infrastructure is really to provide the support and resources and tools that everyone in the university community needs in order to be able to do their job at the optimal performance. And as such, we really value the input from the community as a whole to be able to move forward and ensure that everyone can accomplish their goals and have the most successful career here at Rowan.
Thank you very much. Michael and Kevin, we heard a little bit from you already. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the pricing committees?
Yeah, I can start. As far as the pricing, I mean, it's challenging in a lot of ways because we were trying to make the tuition affordable and keep the cost down. But of course, we need to bring in enough revenue to cover the expenses. So with these committees, we've heard a lot of additional expenses that we're going to incur. So it's trying to grow the university in size and bring in additional revenue to keep the cost down for the individual student, but at the same time, bring in enough revenue to cover the cost of the university. So we have a sustainable model going forward.
Thank you.
And one of the things we heard consistently, we talked about some of the things that we've done. You know, obviously, we've got to get our hands around the actual costs, et cetera, and that'll be continued work. But one of the things, particularly with the students that were on the committee, we heard was, you know, let's try as much as we can to get rid of the one-offs, the nickel and diming of, okay, here's my tuition, here's my fee, and now I got to pay graduation, now I got to pay this fee, I got to pay this departmental fee. So, you know, trying as much as we can to create a transparency of this is the true cost of your education, with not a whole lot of add-ins.
Thank you. There's a question from Lara. Is there a plan for increasing resources to support services such as disability resources, tutoring and testing services, as well as others that are already stretching to meet the needs of current students in our current spaces? Probably the facilities and infrastructure. Was that a part of any of the committee discussions?
Not particularly that subject, but we can.
Well, something that I would like to comment on, and I really think that the issue of disabilities and also special needs and also counseling and mental issues is intense, and we need to continuously pay attention to this thing as we evolve, because especially post-pandemic, you're going to have many more, in my belief, many more students and possibly even staff, and that need support, need counseling, and we need to be prepared for that, because obviously the first thing, the most important issue for us is the health of our people, and that's so something that we need to constantly pay attention through the DEI, also the whole division, something that I've charged them to really look at the whole diversity and neurodiverse people, and the creation of Center for Neurodiversity, the investment of money in here and bringing these students and providing support really is in the forefront of our mind, and it's very, very important to us. So we are pursuing all of this.
Thank you. There was just a question about University Assembled and what time that is. So I just responded to that. That will be virtual again, so very similar format to what you see here. So along the same lines as disability resources and tutoring and testing services, there's a question about whether or not there's been any discussion regarding an expansion of the footprints for our programs in Camden, particularly around CMSRU. Tony, you want to speak to CMSRU specifically?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think, we're we're paying attention right now, and we're working with the city, the Joint Health Sciences Board, and Rutgers, Camden, and all of our partners in Camden to look what is the next phase of development. I think our approach is not going to be to do it alone. It's going to be to do it with our partners there. So.
But one program that is very important, Tony, that I know that you're working with the two deans, is this idea of 3+3 kind of a degree, so that we can shave off 2 years of medical education. That really is going to be hugely impactful for Camden and for Stratford.
Yeah, so.
Thank you. Penny, I know that RJ is having some trouble with WebEx, but perhaps you can provide a few remarks on behalf of the DEI Scholarship Committee.
Sure. Well, again, on behalf of RJ and myself, we are truly honored to have represented the DEI Scholarship Committee. Along with our wonderful subcommittee, our committee members worked very hard to bring forward recommendations that spoke to, again, beyond just the race, and earlier we were just talking about race and how important it is to look beyond race. We talked about all areas that we need to address as it relates to diversifying the campus and providing additional support. Some updates that I'd like to just share is that we're continuing to research innovative options to address the cost of our med school students. We're reviewing and looking at our aspirant institutions for ways that we can enhance our human capital, as well as the program support for our underrepresented students and BIPOC students. We're evaluating our foundation funds and our financial aid processes to ensure that we're providing financial assistance to those in need, and to ensure that it provides the best support to retain our students, but also to assist in recruiting our students. And we're looking at ways in which we can research, we can help with developing undergraduate research opportunities for students, as well as internship opportunities that will, again, help the support for students, but also in retaining them and helping them have a transition out of Rowan University into the workforce.
Thank you, Penny.
So, other than that, again, it was a wonderful team, and we'll continue to work with our pricing committee to bring forward some additional recommendations.
Thank you very much. And we do appreciate the work of all of our co-chairs. We do need to wrap up. It's getting close to the time that we are ending, and I apologize to Christine and Stephanie that we did not get to hear from you. I think one thing that we would like for everybody to know that, as was previously stated, the work of these committees will be continuing for some of the committees for quite a while into the future. And so we are in the beginning stages of the process of enacting these recommendations. As you've heard, the president is committed to ensuring that they are all operationalized, and we thank him so much for his leadership. And so if you would like to participate, if you have additional questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to all of us. I want to just take a moment before I turn it over to the president to thank, again, all the committee chairs for their work, as well as all the committee members who are not here. I encourage you to go to the website and take a look at all the members of the committee that were involved. It was truly a collaborative effort, and we thank everybody for the time that they took to very seriously look at these issues and to help us guide the future of the university. I also want to thank the cluster leaders, as well as Stephen Horacio, for their hard work in managing this process. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to President Houshmand to send us off.
Thank you again. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. This is only, as I say, it's only the beginning. I'm delighted that everybody recognized that the work is continuing, and we really have ways to go. But the important thing is that we are well positioned and we can really chart our future. So again, I encourage each and every one of you to get involved and to build your university, not only for yourself, but for your grandchildren. Thank you for participation. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, President Houshmand. We thank you sincerely for your visionary leadership. All of this is because of you, and we thank you and are grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.